Hello, all you sports fans out there. How are you doing? It's Russ here from Porky's Corner. Today we're going to do something different. This is Porky's International, and I'm joined by my good friend Jeff Hinds from London. How are you doing, Jeff?
Good morning, Russell. Good afternoon to yourself and of course your viewers. I'm not actually from London, Russell. I'm from Reading in Berkshire,
All right, it's south
which
though,
is
isn't
about it's about sort of 50 miles to the west of London.
it? All right, so you're not a Londoner then, Jeff?
Unfortunately not. I could have been, as I said to you last week, my parents when they first came to the UK settled in Croydon,
Yeah.
but fate would have it that they would come to Reading and the rest is history, as they say.
You like it in Reading?
Yes, Reading is a nice place. Um, you're not actually far away from anything down in Reading, and we've got very good connections to London, connections to Birmingham. In fact, Reading train station, which is called Reading General Station, is actually the third most important train station in the whole country,
Yeah.
behind Paddington and New Street, Birmingham. Not a lot of people know that, but I learned that at primary school, and it's still the case. Reading's got a very, very impressive train station. I mean, it's actually been updated in the last 7 or 8 years. It's wonderful. It looks like almost like an airport. It's a beautiful, beautiful structure.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I've been to Slough. That's
yeah,
down.
yeah, yeah. Slough just up the road. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, Cricket. You've been watching the T20. You're an avid cricket fan. You play club cricket yourself. Can I just ask you, because somebody asked me yesterday, are you a bowler, batsman, or a fielder? He said, what does he class himself as? So a gentleman next door actually who asked me. So I just wanted to ask you.
I actually class myself as an all-rounder.
Oh, like Gary Sobers type.
Well, to be mentioned in the same sentence as Garfield Sobers is too much of an honor for myself. But no, I mean, I do a bit of batting, a bit of bowling, and in recent times, my bowling has been my most strongest on point. But I do regard myself as a sort of an all rounder. Yeah, all rounder,
Brilliant.
definitely.
That's brilliant. Uh, and I remember you saying you're more of a later order batsman now. Are you seven downwards?
If I'm lucky. Yeah.
You as you get older, you tend to go 9, 10 jack, don't you, Jeff?
Well, cricket is a very cruel game, and the batting part of it is the most difficult part. That doesn't get any easier at all. You only got to make one mistake and you're out. But with the bowling, you could give a couple of ordinary deliveries and then produce a good ball and you've got a wicket.
Yeah. Did I ever tell you my debut? I was number 11 and I faced the last ball of the match. It was a 44-6 ball. I was, I'm never going to get on here. Being number 11 and being really young. I
Yeah.
got but last ball and it nearly took my head off. And it should have been a bye. And they gave me as a run. So that was my debut. One not out. Or in Rosington, that.
Mm.
Big old guy with a beard called Gaz come steaming down. Nearly took my head clean off my shoulders. It was really dark getting towards the end of the day.
Uh,
That's a long story. Right. The West Indies, they won. They beat USA. It's what we expected, Jeff. What do you think?
yes, everything went the West Indies' way yesterday evening, or in the early hours, I should say. It was a very efficient performance. Um, USA did what they could do, but as an associate member, there's a difference in class there. There's a difference in levels really, and they were sort of quite pronounced in this particular game. Yeah, and the West Indies, first of all, they restricted America down to what was it, 120 or 129, I think it was,
Yeah,
and they didn't have any
129.
difficulty knocking it off in about what I think less than 11 overs or
Yeah,
around 11 overs. Yeah, pretty comprehensive win for the West Indies.
yeah. The Americans, they need to stick to NFL, don't they, in basketball, I think.
Well, you know what? I think that the sport is growing in America.
Yeah.
And having this World Cup partly held in America, I think is brilliant. It's a chance to actually get a footing into that market, and if it really catches on over there, it
Oh,
could be beneficial to the game in a big way.
do you remember,
Lots of people
Jeff?
play.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Do you remember back in the day when the Americans, they had that William the Refrigerator? They came to Wembley, didn't they, about 30, 40 years ago, and it was big, big news, wasn't it, in 80s? And they tried to get NFL to take off in Europe and in England, but it didn't really take off, did it?
No, I mean it is quite popular over here. I mean, there is actually a sort of a national football league, American football league over here.
Yeah.
And some of the actual American players, I'm not sure if they do the same thing like how we used to do years ago when footballers get to a certain age, they might go and play in America and finish off their career in America. I remember George Best went over to America in the early days. So did Rodney Marsh. I don't know whether they do the same thing in terms of sending their older players or the older players come to the UK and play out the end of their careers. I'm not sure about that. I don't know a lot about NFL, but certainly I know there's definitely I'm sure they had a Premiership league or Premiership team that used to share their ground with an NFL franchise or something. And you sometimes you see the markings on the pitch during the proper Premiership game, which I didn't think was actually satisfactory at all. Something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Australia, they beat Bangladesh. They're not whipping boys like they used to be 20 years ago, are they, Jeff? Bangladesh.
Oh no, Bangladesh are on the top table.
Yeah.
On their day, they can upset anyone. You write them off at your peril.
Yeah, they're like the Joker in the pack kind of thing. You know, like in snooker, they every now and then they'll throw a wild card in, won't they? And you know.
Yeah, but I mean Bangladesh strong cricketing background. You know, they came through the sort of associates period, and they've I mean I went to see the Bangladesh play the West Indies at where was that now? That was it might have been at Thornton, maybe about 6 years ago, and we got a good hiding that day, and I never forget the crowd were very enthusiastic, and Bangladesh had thousands of supporters down there. We were outnumbered by at least 10 to 1 almost. And I remember when I got back to Reading that evening, got back to Reading that night, and when I put my head on my pillow, all I could hear was Bangladesh, Bangladesh, Bangladesh. We got a chasing day that was, but it was all good entertainment in a good spirit.
Brilliant. Do you think the Aussies will win it this year, Jeff?
Well, they're certainly one of the favorites, and again, Australia are very, very good at playing tournaments. They tend to be able to produce their best performances when it's really needed. Yeah. Right. So you again, Australia's got to be in the top 3, fancied for this World Cup once again.
Yeah. South Africa beat England by 7 runs.
Yeah. Interesting. I thought that England restricted them very well after they were off to a good start. They were off to a tremendous start, and it looked as though they were going to post 300. I mean, not 300, 200 plus. But then England came back into it and restricted them to how much did they make in the end? I think did they make about 200? They didn't quite make 200, did they? Or was it just over 200? I can't remember.
They won by 7 wickets, and there's always a bit of spice when England play them, isn't there? Do you think, Jeff?
Oh yes. I mean, South Africa made 163. So that's not a big score compared to how they actually started the game.
Over, Jeff, isn't it? It's 8.3 and over.
Yeah. I mean, that wasn't a big score, but on that particular ground, it seemed as though only the cock, Clinton the cock, got going. He seemed to be the only one who could actually come to terms with that ground, with that particular pitch on the day. So the score 163, England was right in it. They started well, then they lost a few wickets, and then Harry Brook, who I think is a big talent, he was on the verge of winning the game. And then again, South Africa came back and managed to get a couple of wickets, and England was short by about 6, was it? I think they fell short. I think they lost the game by 7 rounds in the end. But yeah, a good game against South Africa. Have not won one of these international limited overs cricket games before. But, maybe this is their time, because they actually won one of the only unbeaten teams now in the whole tournament. So maybe they're going to peak at the right time. It's all about that. It's all about which team finishes the tournament now with the momentum. And South Africa could be a dark horse to watch.
Yeah, India and Bangladesh today. That'd be interesting, won't it?
That will be. Again, you always got to fancy India, but again, I think India are undefeated as well. In these tournaments, you tend to get an upset.
There is. I'm waiting for it, Jeff. Are you waiting for
it hasn't happened yet, has it?
Oh,
it hasn't happened yet. So let's see what happens today with India and Bangladesh. I mean, I wouldn't bet against India, of course. India seems
They've
to.
got to be favourites, haven't they?
Yes, I think India like the Rolls Royce of T20 cricket, aren't they? I mean, they got every area covered, and they got so much talent, so much talent on the bench. Even I'm sure that India could probably field 2 or 3 teams that could give any world team a good run.
What do you think to India having 5 world class, and I mean world class wicket keepers to choose from?
Well, that's a measure of that's a measure of where their cricket is. It's just a measure of where they are. I mean, they sort of got an infrastructure in place there. I mean, when you watch the IPL and the preparations for it and the whole energy behind Indian cricket as it has been for the last, I would say, 10, 15 years at least, I mean, probably a bit longer.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no one with the investment like that and the impetus to keep getting better. And when they got role models like Virat Kohli and others, it's only going to go. It's only going to continue. It's going to be an endless conveyor belt. It looks like.
Do you know when I watched Kohli, I studied him yesterday. Well, looking at his test performances, really, he reminds me of that snooker player Ray Reardon, how he used to strut around in the 70s like he owned the table, really calm. And Kohli looked very, very comfortable. It reminds me of like a young Viv Richards, very cocky but cocksure and confident, at the crease. He's not flustered or anything. He's not in a rush. It's like he owns it, when he's there. And I think he's best batting in the world at the moment, Jeff, across the board.
I wouldn't disagree with that. I mean, I think I said so in our last Zoom.
Yeah.
Kohli's now in his mid-30s, right? So technically speaking, you would expect a player to start to show the signs of decline, slight decline when you get to your mid-30s. Yeah. But he seems to show none of that. His enthusiasm is there. He's like a spring chicken in the field. He doesn't want to give away anything. I mean, he's just a tremendous player, and to have him in your team, it must actually sort of like be like an extra, like a 12th man as well as within the 11. Just having his experience and his track record, it must make India feel pretty much impregnable at the moment.
Yeah. Afghanistan and Australia. You think that's just a walkover for Aussies, Jeff?
No, I don't.
No.
Again, Afghanistan, right? Remember, they've got what's the all rounder they've got? I forgot his name now. I shouldn't forget his name though. But he has some mystery spin about him. I'm looking at him now. I can't recall his name now. But
he's a leg spinner, isn't he?
Yeah.
Every now and then he throws like a googly in or a grubber.
Oh yeah, he's a tremendous talent, and he can turn it on anytime. I tell you what his name is now. His name is it should be here. Where is it now? Yeah, Rashid Khan. Rashid Khan. Look, this guy, he can take wickets.
Yeah.
And once he has one of his better days, you can't actually write off Afghanistan because they're a very competent side, very, very competent, and they got some talented players. And if India takes them lightly in any way, shape, or form, which is no suggestion they're going to do that, but again, on their day, Afghanistan is capable of turning over anyone, and we're looking for that. We're looking for that upset to happen at some point during this tournament. And it could be in that game, but I wouldn't bet again. I wouldn't bet on it, but it could be.
The West Indies and Africa Monday. Now that's a biggie, isn't it?
That's a big game. Big game. I fancy the West Indies have good momentum at the moment, but you saw what happened against England.
Yeah.
They were short, and England showed that you can't be short. England. It was a very professional job that England done there. That chase was wonderful, and Bairstow and Salt were brilliant.
Yeah.
So yes, although the West Indies had some momentum, they'll be thinking about that in the back of their mind. That there's no room for slips at this particular moment in time. So yeah, although the West Indies is a big favorite, of course, but yeah, again, must keep the tools nice and sharp.
Mm-hmm. Now, the big game that everybody's talking about that's on social media, the Aussies and India Monday.
Oh, well, that could be the final, couldn't it?
Yeah, it could be.
It could be. Sorry,
go on.
It could be the final, so we getting we could say we're getting a preview, a sort of preview of the final, and I'm going to pick India to win the game.
Yeah.
I think India is going to win on Monday. Australia may take something from the game, and then try to get that bit of momentum, which will take them into the final.
Mm-hmm.
Which, when they get in the final, according to who they're playing, again, I'll try and pick a winner. But I fancy India to just about get past Australia. I think they just about got the better side.
A bit more polished, aren't they, Jeff?
Yeah, yeah. But it's gonna be a titanic clash. I mean, again, Australia could win it, but yeah, we look forward to that with eager anticipation, as they say.
A lad called Jonathan emailed me, and he says that he doesn't think it's right that India have got such strength in depth. For example, if other teams lose like a main player or a main bowler or a top elite batsman, a test batsman, he's classing India as like Man City. They've got strength in depth across the board, whereas other teams lose a big player. Somebody comes in, he's not a big player. Whereas India lose a big player, another big player comes straight in. It's every position, isn't it? They're picking from about 50, 60 people, aren't they? 11 people.
Yeah, but I mean that in a way could make things difficult for them.
You think?
Because then you've got the headache of
as a team, you think, that they might get a few rotten apples in the team or jealousy and stuff. Do you think?
Yeah, I think when you've got a large pool to pick from, it adds a little bit more of a dimension to how you're going to come up with your best 11 for any particular given game. Because certain games you may be able to play a certain batsman, or batter,
yeah,
and what they call nowadays matchups. Sometimes you might have a player that can be an antidote to another team's player, outstanding player. So you got to have that type of wizardry, if you like, to pick the right side. Now, teams that have lesser players to pick from, they probably got a better idea of what's their best side. More so than teams that have a big pool of players to pick from. So your listener makes an interesting point, but I don't think that it's something that you could really sort of hold against India. The fact is that cricket is thriving and booming in that country to the point where everybody wants to play the game. You know, a country like New Zealand now, a tiny country, has a smaller pool, but then they're often very much right in there with the top guns. Not for this World Cup, they've been disappointing. They haven't got through to the Super 8s, but normally New Zealand are punching with the biggest teams in the world. And they got a smaller team pool of players, as has the Caribbean, as has the West Indies, as has England to a degree. Yeah. But it doesn't mean that you can't come up with 11 great players.
Do you think it's like back in the day when England didn't qualify in '94 for football at World Cup? Jack Charlton got Republic of Ireland there on not a big squad, but a good team and work ethic. And do you think like Afghanistan and Bangladesh, they play Tuesday? Do you think it's possible that one of them two could really throw up some surprises in the later stages? Like Ireland did at World Cup.
Oh, absolutely. And you'll find that sometimes when these lesser teams do well, the crowd actually gets behind them.
Behind them, yeah.
And that can be almost like a 12th person on the field. So yes, once they get some momentum, they can also be hard to stop. And then yes, I remember you alluded to 1990 when Ireland got to the World Cup finals.
In 94 with Jack Charlton. 90, but in 94 England didn't qualify and they went all the way.
Oh yes, I mean I remember that as well with Graham Taylor's.
When the Gascoigne were injured for most of the
camp. Yeah. These things happen. The best teams are never guaranteed success in these big tournaments, but it's always a learning curve. You're always learning whether you're good or different.
They're a bit like Man City, aren't they, India, really?
Yeah, well, yes, in a way, yes. There's similarities there. There's definitely similarities in their dominance at the moment in terms of T20 cricket. Certainly, the IPL is the major T20 tournament.
Do you think then that sometimes having a team full of superstars don't necessarily mean that you're going to win?
Oh no, yeah, it doesn't mean you're going to win at all. But it does give you you have more opportunity, or there's more likelihood that somebody in that team is going to play a match-winning innings. I mean, if you get down to a team like if you take for instance the game that England played against the West Indies the other day, right? West Indies was restricted to 180,
Yeah.
which was not as much as they would have expected. They expected to get at least 200.
Yeah.
Now, somewhere in that lineup of England, when England's replying, if they lose 2 or 3 or 4 quick wickets, you find that they come under pressure.
Yeah.
Any team comes under pressure. But how it goes now with T20 cricket is that no longer is there a case whereby after your wicketkeeper gets out, 7, 8, and 9 and 10 can't hold the bat straight. These guys bat very low. They bat right, they bat late. So it's more of a challenge now to actually bowl out a side. Of course, it's a limited to only 20 overs, yeah, as well. But these guys can bat all the way down.
Yeah.
They can bat all the way down, and they can clear the boundary. They can clear the boundary. So it's really a war of attrition all the way with T20 cricket. You're never safe as a bowler.
Yeah, I was looking at England in 1979, and they played the West Indies, and I was looking at the batting order. It's more because it was new then, and it was like 120 overs. It were a lot more, wasn't it? But I was thinking to myself, well, you've got Boycott there. They're just knocking balls at floor, and it's an overs game. Whereas now they'd be running quick and trying to get quick singles and trying to back themselves in. And then when you get down to late order, Bob Willis and people like that. Bob Willis couldn't bat as good as me. He was a fast bowler, right? He won't get in T20, would he? Guys like Bob Willis and Mike Hendrick and John Snow and people like that. They won't be no good at this because they won't be able to bat. I mean, India, they're 9-10 Jack, the last 3 guys, can score centuries, can't they, in Test cricket if they wanted to? So it's all the way through. They can all bat, can't they, now?
Oh yeah, the game's moved on tremendously since from 79. I mean, we went from the first World Cup in 75. I mean, actually, they showed a little bit of that yesterday evening during the actual during the West Indies America game, because Sir Clive Lloyd was in the audience, and they talked about his feat when he was
He
captain.
could hit the ball, couldn't he? Clive Lloyd could really hit it out at ground.
Oh yes, yes. So they spoke about the 75, and they showed the team, and they showed the score. West Indies actually made 291.
Yeah.
In that final in 75, which looking back at it, that's a lot of runs for that time.
Yeah.
It was I think it was actually a 60 over game with the first T20, the first
the 5 and over, isn't it?
Yeah, and so I mean, but that period of time, that mid-70s period of time, saw the beginning of the modernization
of one-day cricket.
Yeah, yeah. And then, of course, not too long after that, you had the
Kerry Packer.
Yeah, Kerry Packer cricket circuit, which caused a lot of controversy, and well, the rest is history. But since that happened, you find that the game moved on into a different type of direction, and players got to earn substantially more. And then, of course, it all went on till eventually you have the T20 tournament as well as the 50 over tournament as well. So yeah. Things moved on. That period of the 70s was very significant.
What a team they were, West Indies.
Oh yes, I mean that first final in 75, I remember watching it as a youngster, and then again in 79 when Richard scored. I think Richard scored an unbeaten century in the final of that. But one of my most terrible memories was 1983, because we were going for a hat trick of wins, and we played against India in the final. And the West Indies were everyone were the favourites to win it easily, and they didn't win it. That's right. That was Capadale's final. That's it. And if anyone thought then, or thought prior to that you had something naturally within your realms, within your reach, just by turning up, that taught us a good lesson that you never ever win until you've won the game. And India done the business on the day, and the rest is history.
Who's your tip to win it, Jeff?
I'm leaning towards India in terms of what they've been doing in recent times. I think Australia is going to be there or thereabouts. England are the defending champions, right?
Yeah.
I would not write England off at all.
Yeah.
I would not write them off. I think that, again, this thing called momentum will come into it. West Indies being the home side has a good chance as well. So I'm just going to see a few more of these Super 8 games before I come to a conclusion who's going to win. But at the moment, I'm just hedging my bet slightly towards India.
Okay. I just want to finish up on and ask you a question regarding the West Indies attack in the 70s and 80s. Did you agree with them just wanting to put fast bowlers on all the time? You know, your Joel Garner. I mean, he couldn't bat for toffee, could he? Joel Garner, Michael Holding, Andy Roberts, Colin Croft, Malcolm Marshall, all them guys. Once you've seen two fast bowlers off, they're bringing more on, won't they?
Yeah.
Did you think that? Because I used to hate the West Indies in the 70s and 80s, and everybody were petrified going to bat against them. Did you think they were good for the game? Because it reminded me of Bodyline in 1930s, even though I wasn't born then. I've seen the film and that. But did you agree with all that, Jeff?
I did. I agreed with it strongly. I tell you why I agreed with it.
Yeah.
For many years, the West Indies had been considered to be a nice team.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't necessarily guarantee to win. Or they wouldn't win.
In the 50s and 60s?
Yeah.
They were all runs, weren't they, back then? Yeah.
Yes. They were a good team. They would win some.
Yeah.
They would lose some. But their main asset, they always had a couple of good fast bowlers.
Yeah.
Now, something happened in 75. We went to Australia and we came up against Dennis Lilly and Jeff Thompson.
Yeah, they were quick, weren't they? Thompson were quick.
And they roughed up our players tremendously.
Yeah. And
they showed no mercy. And we lost that series 4-1.
Yeah.
We actually managed to beat them in one test match by 2-1. So a decision was made then to no longer be so, let's say, to really play to our advantages. And spin wasn't our advantage. Pace was. And you'll see that from 75 onwards, the captain, Clive Lloyd, was very instrumental in the decision to really go out there with an arsenal of fast bowlers, which was our major asset. And again, the rest is history. And people made there was a lot of talk about it at the time, about you having less overs per day because you're having 4 fast bowlers off long runs. But the test matches were actually being over quicker. Yeah, because they were getting right, teams were all out. The games were finishing in 3 days, 4 days. Hardly any games were going 5 days to get with the West Indies in control. So yeah, no, I agreed with it. Yeah, we had come of age, and it was time for us to stamp our authority on the game. And I was fully agree with it. It gave West Indians, not only at home but abroad, a very, very, very proud feeling, and it made us feel like somebody. Yeah. So that 1976, someone else forget it. We felt like somebody at that time. Yeah, that's good. You know, I was looking at some footage the other day, and Joel Garner reminded me of somebody I always used to come up against a kid I battered against at Ulton Pagnell when he was tall, but when he let the ball go, his arm were always higher than the sight screen. So when it came down into view of the sight screen, you seen it late. So I think the taller the bowler were harder for the batsman, wasn't it, back then? Because they were already quick anyway, weren't they? Yeah. Yeah, they were quick and they were accurate. They were always at you. They never gave you much. They never really give you much leeway or much respite. I mean, I remember hearing Michael Holding say that he didn't give anybody a ball to drive. He said to them, "If you want to drive, get a car." Yeah. You know, go and drive a car. You're not going to drive my body. Michael Holding, for a period of time in early 80s, Whispering Death, they call him. He was frighteningly quick, wasn't he? Frighteningly quick. Oh, he was like a Rolls Royce. And that running, didn't he? Just glided in. Yes. Yeah. He was a bit of an athlete, to tell the truth. He's on, remember? Oh yeah, he was poetry in motion, to tell the truth. A really smooth runner. Apparently, I think he got that name Whispering Death from, I think it was the Empire of Dickie Bird. Because he just came in quiet. Dickie Bird is from round here. You couldn't hear him run in. You couldn't hear him. That's right.
Whereas you could
Yeah,
hear Joel Garner, Andy Roberts, and the rest of them, couldn't you?
yeah. So,
Uh,
so he could hear him coming in. So he was just there on you. Oh yeah,
I
brilliant
wanted to
memories.
ask you, Jeff. Do you remember? Because I can't remember, and I've looked online when the rule came out where they said you could only bowl one bouncer and over. Was that during that period? Because there were
That
10.
was all because of that period. It was all because of that period. And even before that, I mean, the West Indies had two quick bowlers in the early 60s, Wes Hall and Charlie Griffith.
Yeah, Charlie
And
Griffith.
they were giving a lot of problems to batsmen. And they changed the front foot rule.
Yeah.
The front foot rule was changed to combat the West Indies success.
Mm.
So again, that was also in the mind of the West Indies back in the mid-70s when they realized that when they remembered that the rules had been changed to try and combat their potential advantage. So yeah,
Brilliant. Okay.
interesting. Cricket has been very sort of candid with some of their rules to support the teams that were more established, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. But listen, when you look back at them times, how would that pace attack that they had there? You're looking at 8 bowlers there over that period. They're slotting in any era, wouldn't they? I think.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that people look back at that era with such fond memories, even though the players who actually had to contest them at the time weren't happy at the time. But they sort of like speak about it now as a great experience in life
Yeah,
because it probably made them it made them better people.
yeah,
And when I hear Sunil Gavaskar commentating on cricket still, I mean he was from that era and he was a fantastic batsman. He gave the West Indies probably more problems than most
sure, for sure,
batsmen.
wasn't it? Could
Oh
get on,
yes, I
could get
mean,
onto them, couldn't he? Hook them.
yeah, I mean, and when he went to West Indies in 71, I think it was 1971 for the first time. I think the West Indies found it very hard to dismiss him.
Yeah.
Very hard to dismiss him. He was so good that there was actually a calypso song written about Gavaskar by the West Indian calypsonian. But as years went on, and he then had to face the four fast bowlers. It was a different story then.
Yeah.
It's a different story then, but he speaks about it now with fond memories, and he would have taken quite a lot from the rivalry, so to speak.
Brilliant. Okay, well, listen, Jeff, we're out of time, but I want to thank you for coming on. You look very, very smart. I like your tie.
Always a pleasure, Russell.
No problem. Listen, keep in touch, and we'll do something next week if that's all right, Jeff.
Absolutely.
All right. You
Always
have
a
a
pleasure.
great weekend. What's left of it.
Same to yourself.
Take care. Bye bye.
Good night.
Thank you, Jeff.
Bye.
Well, that was Jeff from Reading in Berkshire. Women love him, men want to be him. All right. You take care. Thanks for joining us. Porky's International. Don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment. Thanks, Jeff. Take care. Bye bye.